Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, we are jumping right into a real-life medical mystery today, and honestly, it plays out like a Hollywood thriller. We're going to unpack the mechanics of a deadly, entirely silent threat that hijacked a luxury cruise ship. So, picture this. It's 2026, and a gorgeous vessel is heading for Antarctica and the remote islands of the South Atlantic. You've got about 150 people on board from 23 different countries. For the first few days, it's exactly what you'd expect. Pure enjoyment, parties, socializing. Literally no one had a clue that their dream vacation was about to turn into an absolute nightmare. And man, the horror unfolded shockingly fast. The ship leaves Ushuaia, Argentina on April 1st. Just a few days in, a 70-year-old Dutch passenger starts feeling off. Fever, a headache, some mild diarrhea. The ship's doctor takes a look, but within a matter of days, the guy is struggling to breathe. Then suddenly, on April 11th, he dies, right there on the ship. Now, the other passengers kind of just ignore it, assuming, it was a tragic but isolated health emergency. But then the ship docks at St. Helena, and the victim's wife disembarks with his body. She travels to South Africa to catch a flight home to Amsterdam, but she completely collapses at the airport and dies on April 26th. Back on the ship, a German woman falls ill and dies on May 2nd. One by one, passengers are just dropping dead, and nobody has any idea why. Finally, the World Health Organization is called in. So the WHO steps in, runs the tests, and the diagnosis comes back. It's hantavirus. And what's truly unsettling here is what this reveals about the limits of modern medicine. See, this isn't just one single bug. It's an entire family of deadly viruses carried by different types of rodents. And get this, despite scientists knowing about this pathogen for nearly 70 years, there is still no FDA or WHO-approved vaccine. There isn't even a proven antiviral cure. If you catch it, doctors can basically just offer supportive care to manage your symptoms. Ultimately, your own immune system has to fight this terrifying battle completely on its own. Now, what's wild about this virus is how it attacks the human body in two totally different, devastating ways, depending entirely on where you are on the map. In Asia and Europe, you find the HFRS variant. That one causes your kidneys to fail and triggers severe internal bleeding. But on the other hand, you have HPS. That's the syndrome spreading through North and South America. And this one is particularly horrifying. It causes the victim's lungs to just rapidly fill with fluid. They experience severe, desperate breathing difficulties until, eventually, they suffocate. Let that sink in for a second. The pulmonary variant found in the Americas, the one flooding the lungs with fluid, carries a staggering mortality rate of up to 50%. It is highly lethal. It literally kills half of all the humans it infects. And this silent threat actually has a really long, dark history. The modern world first truly bumped into it during the Korean War in the 1950s. Over 3,000 American soldiers suddenly got sick with raging fevers and kidney failure, and 15% of them died. Initially, doctors actually thought it was a biological weapon. Fast forward to 1993 in the US, 10 young, totally healthy people in the Navajo Nation died out of nowhere from fluid in their lungs. The initial mortality rate there was 75%. Then, look at data from India between 2005 and 2008. Researchers in Vellore tracked 28 confirmed cases among warehouse workers and rat catchers. So this proves the virus has just been quietly circulating among specific risk groups all over the globe. Okay, I absolutely love this next part. Focusing back on that 1993 Navajo Nation outbreak, what's fascinating is how the tribal elders basically solved the mystery way before the scientists did. They looked at their oral history, and it mapped out this deadly chain reaction perfectly. It starts with heavy rains from an El Niño weather system. That extra water triggers a massive bumper crop of piñon pine nuts. Because there's suddenly this huge surplus of food, the local mouse population just absolutely explodes. And obviously, more mice means the chances of the virus jumping to humans skyrockets. It's just a brilliant, albeit terrifying, illustration of how shifts in the environment directly trigger deadly diseases. For decades, the scientific consensus was pretty much locked in. Hantavirus only jumps from rodents to humans. It does not go from person to person. But then, we get the plot twist. In 1996, an outbreak down in southern Argentina completely shattered that assumption. Scientists discovered something brand new. They called it the Andes strain. This specific Andes strain is a real game changer because it is the only confirmed strain in the entire hantavirus family that can actually spread from human to human. But the mechanics here are crucial. It's not airborne. It's not like COVID-19 or the flu where you just breathe the same air. It requires prolonged, super close physical contact. We are talking about sharing a bed, direct contact with bodily fluids,
or intimately caring for a sick relative. Scientists in Argentina also noticed a really scary nuance. Certain infected people can act as super spreaders, passing the virus to an unusually high number of their close contacts.
But wait, here's the saving grace in all of this. Literally a single day. The transmission window for this strain is incredibly short. An infected person is generally only contagious to other people for just one day, right at the very onset of their symptoms. Right, so circling back to our ghost ship, with all this context in mind, we're faced with a massive puzzle. If this specific strain requires extremely close physical contact and you're only contagious for like 24 hours, how on earth did it manage to hijack a luxury vessel floating in the middle of the ocean? The mystery was finally cracked when investigators traced the steps of patient zero. Remember that 70-year-old Dutch passenger, the first one to pass away? Well, in March 2026, literally days before boarding the cruise in Ushuaia, Argentina, he and his wife went on a bird-watching tour. And that tour took them right through a local landfill that was absolutely teeming with rodents. They were exposed right then and there. Because they boarded the ship almost immediately after, that tiny one-day transmission window opened up perfectly while they were already mingling with everyone else on board. If their vacation had started just 2 or 3 days later, this entire outbreak likely never would have happened. Talk about terrible timing.
Because of that one fateful shore excursion, the ship basically turned into a floating quarantine zone. News headlines were sweeping the globe, and countries were just flat out refusing to let the vessel dock. The ship had to wait off the coast of West Africa until Spain finally gave them the green light to dock in the Canary Islands on May 10th. By that point, the toll was heavy: 10 total cases and 3 confirmed deaths. The patients who were critically ill had to be medically evacuated to ICUs in South Africa, the Netherlands, and Switzerland. And the crew wasn't spared either. 2 completely asymptomatic Indian crew members had to be flown to the Netherlands for strict quarantine.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Hearing about a deadly virus trapping people on a cruise ship gives us all a bit of trauma from recent years, right? But comparing hantavirus directly to COVID-19 really helps de-escalate the panic. Just look at the stark differences here. Hantavirus requires fluid exchange or extreme intimate close contact, and the window to spread it is literally just one day. If you isolate an infected person for just a couple of days, the risk basically drops to zero. Contrast that with COVID-19 or the flu. Those are highly infectious, they're airborne, and they require a full 14-day quarantine window. So the spreading capabilities of hantavirus are actually severely limited in comparison. Which brings us to the official bottom line from the World Health Organization. Despite the sheer terror of this ghost ship scenario and that staggering 50% mortality rate, they assure us the overall global risk is low. Because the virus just isn't airborne and has never shown human-to-human spread in Europe or Asia. The chances of this becoming the next massive worldwide pandemic are incredibly slim. However, just because it's not going to be a global pandemic doesn't mean it isn't a lethal, silent threat right in our own backyards. Since there's no vaccine and no cure, your absolute best weapon is awareness. Prevention is everything. You've got to take actionable steps, seal up any gaps in your home so mice literally cannot get inside. If you're cleaning out a dusty old attic, a storage unit, or a warehouse where rodents might hang out, throw on an N95 mask and some gloves. Practice strict food hygiene. Never leave food sitting out, and make sure you're disposing of your garbage properly so you aren't laying out a welcome mat for these pests. I want to leave you with this final thought. Remember those Navajo tribal elders who connected the heavy El Niño rains to an explosive rodent population and a viral outbreak? Well, experts are predicting a massive El Niño weather event this very year. As our climate shifts and extreme weather events just become the norm, what other dormant, silent threats might wake up next? Are we truly prepared for the unpredictable ways nature is going to react? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep your spaces clean, stay curious, and I'll see you next time.